While the Digimon TCG has been around for only a few years now, in that short time we've seen numerous shifts in the meta due to cards having a larger-than-self impact on the state of the game. While there have been plenty of powerful cards that have entered the game from different sets, certain cards end up having a much bigger influence than others. So in this video, I'm going to be discussing what I consider 10 of the most influential cards in the history of the Digimon TCG. Coming in at number 10, we have Davis Motomiya from BT 1.5. That's right, for those of you who have forgotten, this card game had a messy launch with its first few sets. BT 1.5 was technically the second expansion released in the English version of the game, with the first few sets being an amalgamation of cards that had originally been sets 1 through 3 in Japan. But anyway, back to Davis. Davis Motomiya is possibly the most iconic memory-setting tamer ever printed. When entering the field, Davis checks the top 3 cards of your deck and lets you add a blue and/or green Digimon card from among them to your hand. Surge effects are some of the most sought-after abilities in the game, able to help smooth out potentially bricky hands by helping find pieces that you may have been missing. Davis makes the list of influential cards simply by how insanely widespread this card has been ever since its printing, still seeing very common competitive play even into the modern day. Having such a generic search effect, usable for not just one, but 2 colors, is almost unheard of. And the fact that Davis lets you add not just one color or the other, but both, gives an insane value boost to decks running both colors, such as Imperialdramon, Examon, and Leomon. In fact, Davis has become so widespread that even some solid green decks play this blue tamer just for the generic search effect, including some top-tier Grandis Kawagamon lists. While this card may not have majorly shifted the meta or shoved any decks to the forefront of competitive play, its unmatched staple usage earns it the number 10 spot on this list. At number 9, we have Chimeramon from BT 8. Chimeramon is one of the first set of cards introduced to the game which used the brand new DNA Digivolve or Jawgrass mechanic. Chimeramon still remains the only completely generic DNA Digivolution to this day, able to use any 2 level 4 Digimon of any color. When digivolving, Chimeramon can add any level 5 or lower Digimon card from your trash as its bottom Digivolution source, then gives up to 4 of your opponent's Digimon minus 1000 DP for each color he has. Oh yeah, and he gains the color of all cards in his sources. Chimeramon having such a generically powerful effect caused him to receive a ton of hype leading up to his release, giving any deck the ability to DNA Digivolve, bridging from level 4 up into a level 5 for free, easily providing access to a follow-up level 6 play, was simply amazing. However, on release in the English version of the game, the card only wound up seeing occasional play at a competitive level. Why? Because Chimeramon directly inspired multiple bans to make sure it didn't break the game on its release. On release of BT 8, 2 different cards were set to only 1 copy per deck due to results Chimeramon had been creating overseas. Eismon from BT 7 and Savior Huckmon from BT 6. To briefly summarize, Eismon has an effect that works in tandem with another card, Eismon's Scatter Mode. When Scatter Mode dies, it lets the player draw 3 cards and trash any 2 cards from their hand. When Eismon is trashed from the hand, as long as an Eismon Scatter Mode is in the trash, it can summon itself straight to the field. So by swinging in with an Eismon Scatter Mode, it would be possible to trash 2 regular Eismon to immediately summon 2 free level 4 bodies. The introduction of Chimeramon gives a very easy way to immediately abuse those bodies, providing a completely free level 5 body that can instantly go into a level 6 from your hand. Savior Huckmon had a similar issue, being able to summon out a Sistermon from the hand on Digivolution, in a deck already adept at flooding the field with Sistermon bodies. Chimeramon introduced yet another way to push more free value off of the already threatening field presence. And since DNA Digivolution is treated as a completely new stack and doesn't suffer from summoning sickness, it gave both of these archetypes ways to cheat resources and push additional aggression, with virtually 0 drawback. It's worth mentioning that a big contributing factor to these bans included how a future tamer, Alice McCoy, exasperated these problems, but the decision to limit them at the release of BT-8 ahead of EX2, when Alice was slated for release, shows a faith that the interactions Chimeramon enabled could have been just as problematic. So, while Chimeramon may not have had the chance to impact the English meta nearly as much as the Japanese meta, it still warrants a spot on this list for demanding 2 cards be hammered down before it could even be added to the game itself. At number 8, we have Ice Wall from EX1. Ice Wall is widely considered one of the most frustrating cards in the game and had to be limited to a single copy not long after its English release. Ice Wall is a 1 memory option card that simply places a condition on the opponent until their following turn, where each time they declare an attack, they lose 2 memory, with a security effect to simply gain 2 memory immediately. It didn't take long for players to see this card and realize how insanely oppressive it had potential to be. It certainly didn't help that at the time of EX1's release, the best deck in the game was practically uncontested as being Gabubond, an aggressive blue deck with a very fast clock. Ice Wall almost entirely forces the opponent to simply pass their turn. Without a memory set tamer, choking the opponent at 1 or 2 memory meant they could likely only attack once or twice before they had to pass the turn back again. Blue has a long history of being the color of tax effects, restricting the opponent's plays by preventing or making it more difficult for the opponent to attack through archetypes such as Hexablaumon, Blue Hybrid, and Blue Flare. Ice Wall took this idea and ramped it up to 11, causing such an absolutely abusive game state where often multiple turns in a row the blue player could decimate the opposing security, then freeze up the opponent's ability to hit back. At the time, you basically had the option to play a blue deck with 4 Ice Wall, or lose to a blue deck playing 4 Ice Wall. As mentioned, this oppressive game state thankfully didn't last too long, with the card being hit to 1 a month or 2 after its release in the English game. But the misery of that time period with 4 Ice Wall being legal is still looked back on with disdain by any and all players unfortunate enough to endure it. Dropping in at number 7, we have a pair of cards in Puppetmon and Volcanicdramon from BT1 and BT 1.5 respectively, although both were BT2 in Japan. For players who joined the game after the first few sets had already been released, it may come as a surprise to see these two make an appearance on this list. They certainly don't read as being exceptionally powerful or impactful. Puppetmon is an 11 to play, 10,000 DP level 6 Digimon. When played from the hand, you can suspend an opponent's Digimon, then cause their entire board to freeze for a turn, not unsuspending during the opponent's next unsuspend phase. Additionally, on attack it let you gain a memory, but this was far less important. Volcanicdramon is also an 11 to play, 10,000 DP level 6 Digimon, with an on-play effect to destroy all Digimon in play with 4,000 DP or less, with a security +1 effect if you ever decide to swing with it. While the insane play costs of both of these Digimon make them highly unappealing by today's standards, keep in mind that these cards released in the first 2 sets, back during a time when the game was significantly slower. These were cards with effects powerful enough that they could potentially see play in any deck, similar to the modern era DeathXmon, who, spoiler, also has a spot on this list. Much like DeathXmon, both Puppetmon and Volcanicdramon were ever-present threats for their time, forcing players to keep their existence in mind when deciding what to do with their turn, as a poorly timed Puppet or Volcanic could spell disaster for an unprepared player. Puppetmon especially was one of the most potent game closers of the day, essentially skipping the opponent's turn entirely and giving the turn player a second turn to push for a win. It didn't help that at the time, a very popular strategy was Rookie Rush. This deck had a few variations, but for the most part, you got what was written on the tin. A deck playing a lot of very cheap and efficient rookies that tried to win the game while the opponent was still working on setting up a powerful stack. Puppetmon was powerful both for and against Rookie Rush, buying the turn player a vital turn to finish setting up, or by dampening their ability to respond to the early aggression Rookie Rush could put out. Volcanicdramon, by contrast, became one of the best splashable answers to Rookie Rush, being able to reset a wide board of rookies back to square one. So potently, in fact, that many Rookie Rush strategies began adopting a few cheap champion-level Digimon to make sure their board couldn't get completely blown out by an opposing Volcanicdramon. While not the head of their own archetypes, these two cards were big-time tech cards in the earliest days of the game, and absolutely deserve a spot, memorializing them for the impact they had on the early metas of the Digimon TCG. Racing in at number 6, we have Hidden Potential Discovered, released in BT 1.5. Colloquially known as HPD, Hidden Potential discovered is a zero-cost option card. The next time a green Digimon digivolves that turn, by suspending a Digimon, you can reduce that cost by up to 5, with a security effect to add itself to its owner's hand. During the first set of the game, there were plenty of strategies that held a stake in the meta, but one color that definitely got the short end of the stick was green. All of that changed in Set 2 with the introduction of a brand new mechanic, Download or Digisorption. By suspending one of your Digimon in play, you could reduce the Digivolution cost by the specified amount, often making the evolution free. The combination of these powerful new mechanics along with HPD skyrocketed green to the forefront of the meta. Being able to power from a rookie all the way to Mega with only a few resources proved to be one of the first instances of the speed of the game drastically increasing. It didn't help that released alongside HPD would be the proclaimed Queen of Green, Synergies. Synergies had the amazing effect that when you activated a Digisorption effect, you could suspend an opposing Digimon instead of your own. Not only would this give you a cheaper way to access high-level Digimon, it would leave the opposing field vulnerable to attacks, almost similar to the difficult game state created by BT8 Metal Greymon's inheritable in the modern era, where staying back and raising became vitally necessary until you had the proper answer, or else you would lose what you were building. Hidden Potential discovered gave green the insane speed to reach this abusive board state in the first couple of turns, racing miles ahead of other archetypes and forcing them into a defensive position almost immediately. While not all cards on this list are on the ban list and not all banlist cards are on this list, HPD joins Ice Wall for its over-the-top push of one particular color into the forefront of the meta. This card was added to the ban list at a limit copy of 1 per deck to ensure that all future green archetypes joining the game weren't able to use this nitrous boost to make their plays several turns ahead of the opponent. Hatching in at number 5 on the list is Bokomon from BT7. Very few archetype introductions changed the state of the game quite as much as the hybrid cards. Initially introduced in BT6 Great Legend, hybrids are a series of champion-level Digimon that can digivolve onto tamers as if they were level 3 Digimon. Initially, the series only featured a small handful of cards, including Agunimon, Burning Greymon, Lobomon, and Kendo Garurumon. However, once Set 7 rolled around, all of that changed. Introduced in BT7 were hybrids available for all colors, as well as a handful of powerful support cards including tamers with inheritables, adding incentive to the use of the mechanic. Coming in right alongside this influx of support was a single, rookie-level white Digimon called Bokomon. With the help of Bokomon, hybrid archetypes of every color began absolutely dominating the BT7 meta. On play, Bokomon lets you look at the top 5 cards of your deck and add any Digimon with hybrid or 10 warriors in its traits and any tamer card among them to your hand, perfectly setting up the hybrid mechanic for use. As if that wasn't enough, once per turn, when one of your tamers digivolves, you can also gain 2 memory, making most hybrid evolutions completely free while allowing a select few to even go memory positive. Bokomon was basically a one-card engine that let the hybrid archetype function around itself. While not always played in every single list, there's no denying that Bokomon played a very large role in the uncontested dominance that hybrid decks had throughout their respective set. The very existence of Bokomon encouraged players to play cards specifically to slow down the engine, including cheap removal, as well as increasing prevalence of already powerful cards like Sora and Joe. As the meta progressed, the top hybrid deck, Blue Hybrid, wound up running less copies of Bokomon so as not to benefit opposing effects, including Sora Joe. Bokomon easily earns a higher spot on this list thanks to the meta-spanning homogenization that it created throughout BT7's format. Slicing in at number 4, we have Omnimon from BT1. This is the original boss monster, the very first truly dominant deck the Digimon TCG ever saw. In the very first set, and following into a few sets after, we saw the emergence of 2 primary decks that ruled the meta and served as gatekeepers to what decks could and couldn't compete: Blue Omnimon and Red Omnimon. Similar to Puppetmon and Volcanicdramon, Omnimon's powerful effects heavily dictated what archetypes would be able to stand out in the meta. Omnimon is a 15 to play, 15,000 DP level 7 Digimon. On Digivolve, you can delete any Digimon you like, then delete all other Digimon in play that share a name with the chosen Digimon. On attack, by returning a level 6 Digimon from its sources to your hand, you could also unsuspend Omnimon. Not only did this Digimon pack an amazing removal effect, more flexible than even most modern removal effects, the ability to unsuspend meant that you could also have the option to push aggressively to end the game, while the opponent was still trying to recover. This card was so powerful at the time that the decks looking to turbo into it played generically cheap-costed ultimates and megas just to get into it as fast as possible, leading to hard-playing cards like Groundramon, Manzemon, PhoenixMon, and Plesiomon a reasonable choice to get into Omnimon without needing a full ladder to climb. Of course, making these plays on turn 1 came with the downside of giving the opponent a chance to make the exact same play right back, potentially brutally punishing the turn 1 player. Omnimon is easily one of the most iconic Digimon in the entire franchise, and BT1 Omnimon will forever remain one of the most iconic cards ever released, earning it a high spot on this list. Frustrating me right into number 3 is DeathXmon. DeathXmon is a contender for the most infamous Digimon card ever released. While there have been plenty of powerful cards released over the course of the game, DeathXmon's biggest problem is how generic it is, being used in nearly every deck able to donate space to it. DeathXmon has an initial play cost of 20. However, the play cost is reduced by 3 for every Digimon and Tamer the opponent has in play. It packs 15,000 DP on a level 7 body, but very rarely is this card digivolved into. The insane cost reduction allows this card to be played for 5 memory or less pretty easily, and once in play, it has the capacity to take over the game. On play, or when digivolving, it de-digivolves the entire enemy field by 1, then destroys all of their Digimon that are level 4 or lower, wiping everything that was initially ultimate level or below. Additionally, at the end of each opponent's turn, it deletes all of their Digimon with the lowest level. So not only does this wipe fields clean, but it requires the opponent to continue feeding it small bodies or else it continues to remove the enemy stacks. DeathXmon joined the card pool during BT9, and due to its ability to slot into any deck it wanted, became an omnipresent threat that put Puppetmon and Volcanicdramon to shame. The mere existence of DeathXmon meant that certain strategies were pushed out of the game entirely if they didn't have a proper answer to it, or wanted to play out multiple bodies in fear of its board wipe effect. Even decks that didn't naturally play into DeathXmon's strengths had to be cognizant of its existence, since playing a few too many Tamers or small bodies could easily open the window for a cheap DeathX to hit the board and turn the tables. The impact that DeathX has had since its release, not only as a dominant card choice in the insane variety of strategies, but also as a singular force manipulating the very viability of certain strategies, earns it the number 3 spot on this list. Trending into the number 2 slot is Cool Boy. Possibly the most powerful Tamer ever printed, Cool Boy has remained a top meta staple every format since its printing in BT9. For a cost of 2 memory, this Tamer reveals 3 cards from the top of your deck and lets you add any copy of an X antibody option and any Digimon with the X antibody trait from among them to your hand. Additionally, when one of your Digimon X digivolves into a same level Digimon with the X antibody trait, you can suspend this Tamer to gain a memory and draw a card. Right off the bat, that is a lot for a 2-cost Tamer to do. While X antibody, specifically Alphamon, existed as a deck during BT7 and 8, it wasn't until BT9 and an influx of X antibody support that X antibody strategies of all colors became meta-dominant threats. This dominance is due in no small part to the incredible power of generic support, specifically the X antibody option card and Cool Boy. While some decks run only one or the other, and an argument could be made for X antibody to share this spot on the list, Cool Boy is without a doubt the stronger of the two. Being among the cheapest Tamers in the game, while carrying a search effect with potential to add 2 cards to the hand, these traits alone would make Cool Boy a very playable Tamer. But by generating card and memory advantage off of the X Digivolution mechanic, a mechanic, mind you, that is already powerful in its own right, Cool Boy grants the decks able to support it with incredible speed and consistency. The impacts of BT9 on the state of the game are still being felt even as we enter into the BT12 format, with numerous X-Antibody decks still sitting in top-tier placements. While Cool Boy may not make an appearance in every X-Antibody strategy, it has contributed to the dominance of top decks on more than one occasion, managing to survive as specific cards from those strategies have been added to the ban list. As long as X-Antibody strategies continue to be added to the game, we'll likely continue to see Cool Boy and X-Antibody tying the themes together and granting them a leg up on the competition. And finally, charging into the number 1 spot, my pick for the most influential card in the Digimon TCG goes to Omnimon from BT5. Referred to in the Digimon community as Blitz Omnimon, the introduction of Omnimon into the card pool fundamentally altered the existence of red and blue decks, and remains one of the most unique cards in the game to this day. The effects on Blitz Omnimon are actually pretty simple. When digivolving, as the name would suggest, this card is able to blitz, meaning that even if the turn passes, this card can still declare an attack. This ability by itself is not super uncommon, it's the second effect that has created a unique niche only usable by this card. When digivolving, Omnimon also unsuspends. What this means is that for any deck running BT5 Omnimon, if they are able to clear the opponent's security and have a level 6 Digimon in play, they are practically guaranteed their one final attack. The unique design of this card means there's no memory requirement, so even if the player is sitting at 0, they can pay the full 4 to digivolve, unsuspend the stack, and attack in order to finish the game. Since Omnimon digivolving doesn't change the nature of the stack it enters on, any effects already in play, such as extra security checks, will also remain still active. So in scenarios where the player isn't able to fully clear security on the first attack, often the remaining security can be cleared with a second attack thanks to Omnimon, giving the opponent only a single turn to retaliate before the game ends. On top of this, if the player isn't able to finish the game, Omnimon carries inherent protection. On either turn, if Omnimon would be deleted by an effect or returned to the hand or deck, you can trash a level 6 material from its sources to keep it in play. This playline creates an unmatched line of aggression that gives blue and red OTK strategies an outright absurd ability to close the game out. Omnimon has seen competitive play at the top level and will continue to see play for the foreseeable future, as no other card in the game can do quite what this card is able to, earning it the top spot on the list. And that's going to do it for today's top 10. If there are cards you feel should have been included in this list, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. If you enjoy this content and want to see more, feel free to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss my next upload. With that, I'm an avid herpetologist. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next time.